Hi everybody, welcome to a new episode of Motor Mouth, brought to you by the Boyertown Museum of Historic Vehicles. I'm Kendra.
I'm Dan.
And we are here today. I think we're going to kind of follow up on something you talked about in the last episode.
Yes.
Which,
yes.
If you don't remember, go back and watch our last episode of Motor Mouth. We talked about Daniel's automobiles, which were built in Reading, and there was so much information you couldn't even fit it into one segment.
Yeah, right,
so
right.
We're back today to finish her up, I think.
I hope.
There's
yeah.
probably more. We just
Yeah.
haven't found it yet.
So what we're going to talk about is a lot of stuff from Daniels. We talked pretty much about one of our Daniels, which is right over here, the 1919 Daniels. So today we're going to be talking about our 1920 Daniels and a little bit about our 1922 Daniels, which is very similar to this, but it's darker color.
Yes, it is. Pop. This one pops a little more.
Yeah, it pops more.
Yeah.
So, you know, sometimes I'm going through this stuff and it's like, you know, am I getting too deep into it? I like this stuff. I mean, but that's me. And I'm thinking, you know, our vast viewing audience out there, do they like it? But
we hope so.
You know, if you like history,
yeah.
You don't even have to like automobile history, but if you just like history, there's a lot of interesting things that tie in, especially since it's sort of local, being built in Reading. And you know, there's other parts in it that were local and such. So
yeah.
So anyway, so that's it.
And here we are.
Okay, as a review, okay, this might be on the final test.
Get your pens out.
So we're reviewing it.
Pencils and note paper.
Yeah. So we're not going to have a test. Okay. So we have the Daniels Motor Car Company of Reading, Pennsylvania. Okay. It was formed by two guys. One of them was George Daniels, who had backgrounds with General Motors. Other one was Neff Parrish. Neff. Do you know how many Neffs do you know? I thought so.
Yeah.
None. Okay. He was the one who was involved with Parrish frames and such from Reading, and I figured that's why they ended up in Reading.
Yeah.
Daniels was probably looking for a partner, and he saw somebody in Neff Parrish who had the money and kind of had the business acumen. Is that the right word? Acumen?
Yes. I like that word.
Double word score.
Good.
Okay.
Only if you're on the Star. No.
Yeah. Oh, all right. So anyway, so the Daniels, they started by making cars in 1915, and they always had V8 engines in, and that was a unique thing back then. Is there were very few 8-cylinder engines, and these had V8s right from the get-go up until their end. The engines were Herschel Spillman from New York, who also made carousels, which is kind of an interesting connection. And
really?
You know, there's Herschel Spillman carousels. If you type in Herschel Spillman on Google, carousels will come up before V8 engines.
Cars.
Yeah.
Wow.
And anyway, in 1918, 1919, right in that era, Herschel Spillman decided they're not making 8-cylinder engines anymore because they're only making probably a few hundred, probably for Daniels and
maybe one other.
Nobody else.
Yeah, I know.
But they continue making 4- and 6-cylinder engines, which they made like 60,000 a year. So it was quite extensive. And in fact, we just obtained a vehicle here at the museum that has a Herschel Spillman 6-cylinder engine. And yesterday, I was here at the museum talking to somebody who has a truck with a Herschel Spillman engine.
Oh, wow.
That's a 4-cylinder, small truck. So anyway, what else can I talk about this car, or not this car, but the Daniels thing? The engine they had after the Herschel Spillman was made by a company called Light Machinery and Foundry Company out of Pottstown. So there's a very local thing. Pottstown 6 miles, like that way. Okay, go out the door and turn right, and so that's local. We have one of those engines on display, but the whole Light machinery and foundry company is kind of a big involved story, and we'll kind of skip that to maybe next time.
We talked about it a little bit in another YouTube web series, actually, but it's like scratching the surface. They were into everything, it seemed. And
I think in the last month or so, I found out some like really neat stuff with Herschel Spillman. And again, it's not even a car thing, but it's something, it's interesting. And the general public, you know, once I tell it, will kind of know, okay, this is what he's talking about. So I did not tell Kendra about this yet, and I'm not going to tell you until later on, you know, the next episode or whatever. But that's with light. Did I mention? I think I accidentally said Herschel Spillman there. But anyway, it has something to do with light manufacturing at Pottstown.
Light is confusing.
It's confusing, but a lot of companies back then were doing that.
Yeah.
Conglomerating.
Yeah. Ooh.
Yeah. You know, they were getting involved in all sorts of things because that was kind of the way things were going.
Yeah.
So anyway, you probably wonder what happened to Daniels today. I don't know if you wondered about that.
I have often wondered that.
You already knew anyway. They ended up going through into the early 20s in 1922. Daniels stock was first traded on New York Stock Exchange. They wanted to raise production to 1,000 cars a year. Now, they were comfortable doing like 300 or 400 cars a year, which was good for a high-end luxury car, which these were, okay? So they put their name on the stock exchange. Mr. Daniels had something to do with that. Mr. Parrish disagreed with that, and he ended up leaving the company with his money and his expertise.
That probably hurt.
So Daniels has controlling everything in this. And one of the things that Parrish wanted, so it wasn't just all money, he wanted the company to be called the Daniels Parrish Motor Company. He wanted his name in there.
Yeah.
And I think there was a lot of other little things going on. So anyway, 1923, they were placed in the receivership. Mr. Daniels tried for about 9 months to find someone to take the place of Mr. Parrish. He couldn't. He ended up trying to sell the company. The factory workers had to be released. Office workers went into the shop and finished cars which were on order.
Yikes.
So in 1923, receivers actually were appointed. They asked the court for permission to sell the assets at a public sale. So in 1923, the company was bought by Levine, or Levin, L-E-V-E-N-E. How do you pronounce that?
I have no idea.
Okay, we'll say Levine. Except
Levine's
next time I say it, I'll probably say Levine. Okay, Motors Company down in Philadelphia. And this company bought like parts and materials from car companies that went out of business. And I've seen advertisements, and it has Levine Motors, and it has a whole list of different makes of cars that are now obsolete or
they're kind of like
defunct.
Yeah, they're like going in and like swooping up these failing companies.
Because if you owned a Daniels, now all of a sudden there was not a distributor, or there was not a dealer you could go to, and you say, you know,
I need a part.
Yeah, my front wheel's falling off. Yeah, and so you could go to Levine or Levin and do that. So they specialize in buying parts of the inventory of these companies, and they supported the owners and such. Also, Levine planned to keep on manufacturing Daniels. They said a new line of cars will be, bar none, the best in America.
Well.
So, I've seen pictures of Levine Daniels. Of a Levine Daniels. And actually, it's one of these, it's just a chassis with seats in it, and it has the motor. I think it has a hood on the motor. but you know, license plate and sitting in the street in Philadelphia.
Oh my gosh.
So I guess they drove around, and I think there was signage on it saying, hey, this is the new Daniels here. So the original prices for Daniels cars were, boy, I don't have that information right here.
They were pretty high.
They were pretty high, but when Levine had them, they went up to like $6,800. So back in 1923, whereas a Model T was going for 500 or something, these were, you know, pushing 7,000. That was a limousine body, so that was probably the top of the line. But comparatively, a Packard, which was also a luxury car, was around 5,300. So 6,800 versus 5,300. It's a pretty good jump back then.
Yeah.
So they were neat. You could also get a bare chassis. So if you wanted a custom body of your own make, you know, like go up to Fleetwood to get one, or down to Durham. Durham was probably easy because Levine was in Philadelphia and Durham was outside of Philly. So, so anyway, in 1926 or 27, I see conflicting information about Levine. They kind of threw in the towel, and that was it for Levine and Daniels and this whole thing. So you're asking, what about this vehicle right here? This is 1920, a Model D Daniels, and it's a luxury car, kind of a worn out luxury car. Would I say that right? Okay.
Sure.
It's kind of, it's seen its days.
It's been touring quite a bit.
It's been touring, yes, very good. Okay, that's why they call it a touring car. And, you know,
it's enormous.
I've seen a picture online of this car from, I'm thinking 40 years ago, 45 years ago, 50 years ago, I don't know. It's a color picture before the museum had it. And, you know, it's pretty much what you see here. It's a little nicer because there's less that amount of wear to it.
Yeah, 40 years of aging.
Yeah, yeah. So as a gentleman owned it called Steve Dana. I came across him a couple times at Hershey. Great guy, really nice guy, and he talked about driving this car and another Daniels he had around the streets in California at high speeds, exceeding the speed limit. And it was pretty neat talking to him because, you know, he knew other owners of cars like this, and they would be driving, you know, going on these cruises back in the 60s, I guess it was. And I reached out to him for some like more information, but he passed away a couple years ago, unfortunately. So, but it was just neat hearing the stories he had at Hershey, telling me about this car right here. So what can I tell you about this car? Oh, actually, here it is. This car, in 1920, Daniels Model D, was $4,500. So I mentioned Levine, and 3 years later, kind of bumped their limousine up to 68,000. And you know, and you think 68,000 or 6,800, or for this car 4,500. Okay, so what? But you compare it to a regular car, which would have been under $1,000.
Yeah.
And you know, we're talking a multiple. So I don't know, what's a regular car cost today? 25,000?
Yeah.
Maybe a little more.
Yeah.
Okay, multiply that by 4 or 5, and that's what we're talking about with this.
There's not a lot of people that could even afford this.
No.
Yeah.
Well, maybe you.
Huh. Yeah.
No?
I could fit 2 of my cars in this spot.
You could fit your whole family in it too. Okay, easy.
Easy.
Yeah, I think your kids would love it.
They would.
Yeah.
The wind in their hair.
Yeah, and the dog.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Slobber going on.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's see. The engine in this, as I mentioned, was a V8. It was built by Light Machinery and Foundry out of Pottstown, and they had a little slogan, and it was said, let's see, Daniels 8 engine with just a little more than you ever need. And I think that's kind of a neat little phrase there. So, you know, whatever you needed, just a little bit more.
Yeah.
And I'm sure people like Steve Dana tested that theory out too.
It sounds like he did.
So the engine was a 404 cubic inch engine, which is large in today's, mind, but only 45 horsepower, which was not much. But back then, the technology was nowhere near what it is today. It was made by Light Manufactured. It had a Zenith carb on it. Now, Zenith is, in a way, is still around today. It's a company in Detroit, Michigan that make carburetors. This is a Zenith Duplex, which is a 2-barrel carburetor. It said, known the world over as the Zenith of carburetor efficiency. You like that? Okay. Ooh. The company was founded in 1911. It still exists, known as Zenith Fuel Systems LLC, and headquarters and factory in Bristol, Virginia, which is just across the border from Bristol, Tennessee.
That's confusing.
Not really.
To me,
Bristol, Tennessee is where the racetrack was.
Oh,
I went there to the race once. Okay, anyway.
That's neat that they're still around and doing.
Pardon?
That's neat that they're still around and doing this stuff. That's
and
cool.
not only that, they still offer replacement carburetors and kits. Zenith updraft, downdraft, side draft, horizontal carburetors, and they have replacement carburetors and stuff. I don't know if they have the parts for carburetors from back then, but
wow,
I don't know. I didn't really get into that.
That's pretty neat.
So anyway, that's a little bit about the engine there. Of course, being it's an expensive car, it was catered to the wealthy people.
I would say so.
A lot of the people who bought these were Hollywood people. They could, first of all, they like exclusive cars. I guess you could say this exclusive.
I would say so.
Custom built body.
Yep.
Also the expense, of course, and the high speeds. So that's why Steve Dana could drive this around in California.
It's got stuff that, gives it some character, some flair, like even just the wood trim up here. Yes, yes.
That's the word you're looking for.
Dan would really kick my behind in Scrabble, I think.
Yeah.
You're like in the Scrabble mode
I was just going to
today.
say double word score again. Okay. So with an expensive car, there's probably a bunch of things, but one of the things I'm going to touch on is, I mentioned the engine. With the engine on these, you had a device that ran off of the transmission, and it was a tire pump. And so if you had a flat tire, you didn't really have to fret or anything, but you had a tire pump, and it ran right off of that. And the hose, now in this car, I don't know where the hose
might come out of there.
It might come out of there, and you just kind of run around there. But it actually came with a Casco tire pump. And we have our engine that is sitting by itself right over there, actually has one of those tire pumps on it. So tune in. Yeah.
There's another car here that has that feature.
We have a Packard here. Has I think that's a Kellogg, which was probably the better known brand of tire pumps, and that has. And we actually have the hose coming here, and there's
the little panel,
little valve that you open up and such.
That's neat.
So,
how convenient.
Huh?
How convenient.
Yeah. Well, you think of the roads back then were
yeah.
nothing like this, and I think the rubber tires were nothing like they are today.
No, I've read that they've gotten better in how they treat the rubber and cure it or whatever to make it a little more.
We talk
hardy.
About our Doriers, which are 20 years older than this, and how there was a flat tire every 4 miles or something like that. And so we're talking 1900, to go from here to Reading.
It's a lot.
You might get 4 flat tires.
That's why people didn't drive that far.
No. Well, they didn't, I guess.
Yeah. And why they have all the spares, too.
Right.
It's not as obvious on this one. The other Daniels it is.
Sometimes you see multiple spares on it, okay? A lot of times the rear tires and the front tires were not the same size.
Right.
So you
that's true,
would need 2 of them to start with.
Yeah.
But anyway, so along with the tire pump are the tires. Now I look back, I have this great book at home and gives a lot of specifications for cars from back in that era, from I think 1915 to 1942. Great book, okay? And anyway, one of the things, you look up 1920 Daniels, and it says about the tires, and it says various. So you could get different brands of tire, I guess what week you were buying it or something. But one of the things is the rims on the tires. Now, these are kind of hard to see because they're dark, but the steel rims here were actually made by Firestone, which kind of were connected with the tires, of course, okay? Same company, and did you know that?
No, I didn't.
Well, you just found that
I
out.
just learned that.
But even cooler than that is the wheels themselves. You can see it has spoke wheels, wooden spoke wheels. They were made by a company in Philadelphia called SCHWARZ. And these are very interesting, and I think I can describe it to you a little bit, but if you come and look at these wheels, you have to look pretty close, and most wooden spoked wheels, the spokes come together like wedges and go around the whole circle. Whereas these are kind of interlocked, and I don't know what that is, a dovetail joint?
Yeah.
And you really can't see it on these, but if you look at the joint between them, thinking of what I just said, it kind of makes sense. But again, they're still hard to see. We actually have a wheel out in the lobby that does just a wheel, and it doesn't have this center hub or anything, and you can see it very easy.
Yeah.
It's for one of the...
Was that done for strength, do you think?
It was done for strength, for side something. So if you're going around a turn, it would just give it stronger. And the wheel we have out in the lobby is for a very light car compared to this.
These are heavy duty.
These are heavy duty, but they also make truck tires or truck wheels out of them. So that's kind of interesting. SCHWARZ, did I say they were Philadelphia made? Okay, they're still Philadelphia made. Okay.
That didn't change.
No, it didn't. Something else, again, this is a special bodied car, so they had luxurious things like this wood here going around the edge. That was kind of fancy and such. These little running lights up here, these are wood here, there's one on each side, of course, but this one has a red light in, the other one has a green light, and Kendra and I were talking earlier about that, and I think it goes back to, it's like a nautical theme. And if you read back in old car magazines from like 1920, you see, once in a while, you'll see nautical themes in vehicles back then. Also, you see stuff about airplanes too. Now, this is an airplane thing, but it is the nautical thing. And it's kind of interesting there. Okay, going to go back again. The body was made by a company called Keystone Vehicle Company. So you're going to get some history here. Starting in 1876. They were not making car bodies back then.
No.
But they were into coal wagons and stuff. And it was a guy, James Cleese, who was out, I think he lived like north of Reading, northwest of Reading, somewhere up there. Which coal country, that makes sense. But in 1886, he moved to Reading with his whole business, and whatever company he was, initially it was called Keystone Wagon Works. He changed it to Keystone Vehicle Company when he was in Reading. 1909 is when they called it that name. 1912, they were actually, by then they were into automobile bodies, and they were building about 1,500 automobile bodies per year, 1912.
Wow.
Okay, we're talking 1920 here, okay? So again, it's 8 years before that. And that surprises me. I saw this look in your face. And it does surprise me. I'm thinking, okay, they're probably made for the cars that were coming out of Reading.
Right, yeah.
But still, it's a lot of cars.
Yeah.
Anyway, a couple quotes here. One of them is from 1915 about that company. If you are in the market for motor bodies of any description and in any quantity, Let the Keystone Vehicle Company know your requirements and they will submit to you an attractive estimate. Okay, this sounds like it's going out to car companies to, you know, we'll make 100 bodies or whatever you want here. And here's from 1916, which was a year later from that first quote. It says, we have standardized a wide range of types and styles in car bodies. These are custom built in every sense of the word. They go far beyond the car builders' body standards in point of style, workmanship, and appointments. And for the man who wants his car to possess distinctive lines and elegance, they are beyond compare, yet well within reasonable price limits. So again, they're reaching out in 1916 to whoever wants these. The Great War. And so we're talking World War I and we'll say 1918, okay, a couple years later. They designed and supplied canvas tops for various military vehicles. And they were also awarded a contract by the government to build 5,000 bodies for Class B trucks.
Oh,
if
wow.
you're into the vehicle history, during World War II, they had like a standardized truck called a Liberty truck, Class B. So there they were. I don't know if they actually built these bodies. The war could have stopped before they got, because there were several companies that were building, excuse me, there were several companies, like maybe 10, 15 different truck companies that were assembling these trucks.
Yeah.
So Keystone would have just had one element of the whole thing.
Right, right.
Now, here's something else, and this is kind of interesting, you know, to Kendra and me, hopefully to you visitors too. I mentioned they were supplying canvas tops for various military vehicles. One of the canvas top military vehicle is the Dodge Brothers light machinery repair truck.
Yes.
Which we had one of them on loan here a few years ago in the museum. So, and I made sure that owner found out that, hey, look what I found. So that was pretty cool. So,
wow, that's cool.
Okay, so that was 1918. Also in 1918, George Daniels, remember him?
Hey.
The guy who named this car. He purchased a controlling interest in Keystone. In 1920, Keystone Vehicle Company and Daniels Motor Car Company merged with the new name of Daniels Motor Company. So that's this car. I want to make a mention to the trunk in the back there. And anytime I come in here, not anytime, but sometimes I come in here and we don't have visitors to talk to, and I'm thinking, you know, I get investigating things. So one day I went back to that trunk and I looked at it, I opened it up, I had to do that and see what's inside. And there's fitted luggage to fit in that.
Oh, that's cool.
The trunk was made by a company called Eagle Lock Company out of Terryville, Connecticut. Okay? Established in 1833. At one time was the largest trunk and cabinet lock maker in the world. Okay, and we got one of their things right here. Okay, but more importantly, maybe tied into everything else in the old automotive world, it was once, the trunk company was once owned by F.S. Bowser Company of Fort Wayne, Indiana, the maker and inventor of gas pumps. So Bowser gas pumps were really well known back in the day. I'm not sure, I don't think they're still existing. But anyway, they also owned the trunk company back then. So
they got involved in things, I noticed this sometimes, and you were kind of saying with light, they get involved with things that don't seem to really go together.
Right.
But I guess they're just businessmen or looking.
Yeah, diversifying.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, cool.
So anyway, yeah, there was a lot of interesting things about this. And
it's a big car. It's got lots of stuff to talk about.
Yeah, they do. And well, I'll kind of leave it there. And you know, you have to tune into a future program. We'll try to unravel the light manufacturing and foundry company.
Grab a sandwich and a cup of coffee when we do that.
The jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll go from Scrabble today to jigsaw puzzles
exactly.
in the near future. So okay.
Cool.
And that's it.
All right. Well, thank you. please visit us here at the museum. We've got several Daniels, not just this one. You can check out all those little details.
I'm one of them.
And that's a Daniel too. He can tell you more about them.
Well, yeah.
Well, so please visit the Boyertown Museum website or come visit us in person. And thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.